Okay, so having done my plan, which in the first video in this series, I know what I'm going to program, but I'm still not going to program everything all at once. I'm going to slowly add functionality, testing each time. So the first thing I need to do is put a comment. This program calculates whether furniture will fit in a room, and I'll need my include statements. Include IOStream. I'm going to include string because I know I'm going to use string variables. And using namespace standard. Okay. And I'm just going to write some comments here. I'm going to, at some point, define the class, and I will also have function declarations. I'm not going to put them in now, but those are all things that go before your main program. So I'm going to have void main. Void is my main program. Of course, I'm always putting in my open and close brackets at the same time. And to go even further, I could put a comment here that this bracket is the end of main. And then if you see this bracket, you know exactly what you intended it to go with. And I'm going to write another comment here down below the main program to remind myself that this is where the function definitions are going to go. They go totally, completely after the main function. Okay, so and I could actually at this point, well, let me put my little system pause at the end of the program. It is not a bad idea, even at this early stage, to just run the program and make sure it runs. You know, make sure you got both brackets, you know, you didn't spell anything wrong up in the includes, and just make sure that everything is good. And it does, and it runs, and that's all we wanted to see there. So I'm going to do a save all. Okay, so I'm going to start simply by defining a function. Now, and there's many ways that we could start the program, you know, which pieces we put in first. But I'm going to start with the function to display the menu, but I'm not going to build the function yet. First, I'm just going to you know, test the line items that I want to be in the function, and then I'm going to move them over into a function. So to display the menu, I'm going to have a lot of cout statements. Please. Okay, so the first option, option A, was enter room name. Enter the room name and area. The next option was enter the furniture type and dimensions. Then we had calculate the total floor area, furniture floor area. We wanted to display a summary. And we need a quit option. I could make it E, but I'll make it Q, just to remind us that that is the quit option. Okay, so well, and then it has to wait for a value. So this is where am I? I'm going to declare a variable up here. And it's going to be a char, it's a character, and I'm going to call it user input. User menu input. Okay. User menu input. So I just want to test that much and make sure that this menu prints and that I can enter some kind of input. And it does, it prints, it's displayed reasonably well. I should really have a line at the bottom that says, you know, enter your choice instead of just this flashing cursor. So I'm going to pick any option, and I'm going to go back and add that in. Please enter a menu choice. Okay. And I'm just going to test that. I want to make sure it looks good before I move it into a function. Please enter a menu choice. I probably don't need that end L there. I'm going to quit, because I would actually like the flashing cursor to be right beside this line. And that looks good. Okay. So one of the functions we said that we had was this this option here, this void display, nope, not display summary. Hang on. It was the display menu. So we had this function here, display menu, and it should return a character, which was their choice, and it doesn't need to take anything in. So that's the first function that we're making in our program. So let's go back to our program. Okay, so remember, to make a function we need three things. We need to declare the function, we need to define the function, and we need to actually use the function. So let's start with the function declaration, which is what I had on this page. So character, and I can just copy it right from here because that's what I planned, that's what I want to do. So I'm going to paste that in there. So I've got my character, char, that's what it returns. I've got the name of my function, and I'm saying that it doesn't take anything in. I do need this semicolon at the end of my function declaration. Okay, so that's the declaration, and all it says is what the name of the function is, what type it is giving back, what types it may take in. Okay, so once I have the function declaration, I also need the function definition. So up here in the function declaration, we're just telling the program what type of function to expect. But I also need to say what the function actually does. So way down at the end of the main program, I'm going to add the function definition. The function definition does not have a semicolon. So note here, if we're into the definition zone, no semicolon. Okay? No semicolon. Just make that note. Okay, so our function, like the main function itself, also has an open and close bracket to say where the function begins and ends. I'm going to write a little note at the end bracket that this is the end of display menu function. Now my function's not going to be that big that that I need that, but it's good to have. Okay, so what I wanted was for all of this stuff up here, this displaying of the menu stuff, to go into my function. Now in my function, I'm going to make a char variable called choice, and then whatever they enter is going to be stored in choice, because that variable user input, that belongs to the main function and it's not visible to my function. So I had to make a new variable in my function that my function can then use to store whatever the user enters, and then that is the value that I want to return and send back to the main program. So I'm going to say return choice. Okay, so within my function, I've got a few things. So I said I was returning a character, so I've made this character called choice. I get a value for choice from the user, and I'm returning choice. Okay, so whatever variable is here has to match this type. So they both have to be a char, because I said I'm returning a character. Okay, right, so anytime we call this function, it should display this menu and return this choice. So let's test that. This was, let's remind ourselves, this is the function definition. Okay, further up above, we had the function declaration. Now we need that third thing that we need, which is actually to call the function and use the function. So let's do that. So instead of putting all this display stuff in our main program, we could just call the function display user menu, and because it returns a value, we have to put a variable to hold that value that's coming back. So user menu input is going to hold the value that's coming back from the function display menu, and because it doesn't take anything in, I just have empty brackets. So note that because we said this returns a char, we have to have this equal sign and a character that's going to hold the value that's coming back. So in my main program, I've got this character user menu, and it's holding whatever choice the user made that this display menu is sending back to the main program, because the main program can't see any of the variables within the display menu function. So right, so this value comes back. Let's test it by displaying that out to the screen to see what the user has actually selected. So I'm just going to do a cout that says the user has selected and I'm going to cout user menu input just so we can see that the function is actually returning the right value and that everything works. So there it did display the menu, and I'm going to enter option D. The user has selected D. Of course, it's a little bit hard to see. It's right there where the arrow is. And then there's the press any key to continue. Okay, so I don't actually need this line saying what the user has selected. That was just for testing purposes. So I'm just going to comment it out. So you can see that with this function down here taking all of that code, my main function actually becomes very simple. I call this function to display the menu and I save the value. And that makes this the main part of the program a lot more readable, because maybe I don't really need to know all the details of what's in the menu right now. I just want to see the structure of the whole program.